probably never even thought about how a songwriter writes a duet. But by the end of this episode, you're going to know way more than you thought you ever needed to know about crafting the perfect and the not so perfect duets.
So first, regarding duets, let's introduce our co-writer, Gary.
Hello.
And we will take you back in time to hear the impetus of our song Christmas for Two, and you can probably guess it's a duet. And we will talk about how you can actually turn a song into a duet logistically, technically, and harmonically. And if you stay to the very end for the bonus section, we will talk about our favorite and not so favorite duets. Warning, we may have some very strong opinions about what makes or breaks a duet.
Don't subscribe if you don't want to hear stories and unsolicited opinions about all things songwriting.
So how did we make the duet? So it happens to all of us as songwriters. You've written an awesome verse and then another great verse, and you can't bear to cut either one of them, and they both make sense to the song, but they don't make sense together, and you've tried and you just can't make it fit. So behind every song is a story, but what if that story isn't just one person's tale? It's two people telling two different sides of the story. And we see that all the time in movies and TV and books. But what if our song is meant to be a duet? So we've done this with more than one song, and it's been a great tool to try if the song just isn't working. So plus, there just aren't enough great duets in the world, right?
Okay. So as an aside, we're not talking about songs where there's like a main artist and a featured artist who just sings a verse and harmonizes on the chorus, where you know it's the record company trying to get more ears on a single. And I'm not knocking you, Lady Marmalade reboot, because that was awesome. And let's be honest, it can be great for the artists involved and for us listeners to enjoy. We're talking about when you actually need a second voice or a second perspective to advance the story of the song. And we're going to talk about this song, Christmas for Two, that we, the Song Evolvers, wrote and recorded and produced. How we turned it into a duet. This is what happened when Gary, hey Gary, sent us these lyrics. I'm going to play, before you start, Gary, I'm going to play it, just a snippet of the last chorus.
Christmas for two, Christmas with you.
Everything feels different.
Everything is new.
Christmas for two, enjoying this view. We'll have a very Merry Christmas for two.
Christmas for two,
You and me,
Christmas
babe.
with you.
Just us two, because
Everything feels different.
This is what happened when Gary sent us these lyrics, but it did not start like this. Gary, tell us how you started this song.
So this song started, we were basically trying to write a ton of holiday Christmas songs.
Succeeding.
And
We
what's
did
that?
it. We did it.
We did it, and we succeeded. Yes, we did. It was amazing. It's a lot of work, very stressful. But it was kind of a period where we were throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall, and like whatever sticks, like run with it, just to see if it turned into another song. And this one, I mean, in terms of the idea of the song, it started. I mean, I have the original voice memo, which isn't so close. You hear a little bit of the inspiration, but it was just the idea of almost like a Gene Kelly movie, you know, Christmas time, walking, floating, dancing down the street in love. It was one guy's point of view in love, kind of passing the stores and just like, you know, this year is different because it's Christmas for two, because he's in love and like he doesn't care what's going on around him. So it really was kind of one of those things where you see it in your mind like a scene in a movie. And I remember writing it and really never intended for it to be more than the vantage point of this Gene Kelly type character, you know, singing about Christmas for two. And then I shared it with you guys and it started to go in some new directions. But the idea of it becoming a duet was never in my mind. It was always like, this is, you know, several verses and then the chorus or the punchline of, you know, this year will be a Christmas for two.
Do you want me to play any of the idea?
It's a little embarrassing, but it is how most songs start. I mean, it really is.
We promise not to publish anything embarrassing.
Yeah, that's all right.
No, let's see it. I haven't heard this, so.
I found it, yeah.
We're there.
Even different rhymes.
Christmas for two this year.
That's probably enough to hear that it's very different than what you play. Yeah.
This is not the first time that we've gone from something completely different to something completely different.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And what's interesting is by the end, because I think I have 5 voice memos dated the date that I started that So starting with that idea, the very first one, by the end of that writing session, it was much closer. It evolved even in, I don't know how long I spent on it, maybe an hour or hour and a half playing around with the idea. It already had gotten much closer to what I think you might hear. It's probably what I sent you guys on Evernote, and it's probably what you have with me kind of fumbling at the piano.
And I think that shows how important it is to capture ideas, no matter how minimal you think they might be, because that do that you just did, Gary, turned into a really cool song. But if you hadn't captured every little bit as you progressed through it, we wouldn't have anything.
I think that's really true. I've heard some songwriters say, and I don't know how they do this, that if they don't remember it, they won't record it to a phone or whatever, and they'll think if I don't remember it later, then it wasn't a good. And I don't know how.
Disagree. No.
Yeah, I would never recommend that to anyone who's aspiring to write songs. Yeah.
Maybe before we had voice memos.
I had a little digital recorder though.
Yeah.
Or a little cassette, mini cassettes. Remember, I'm dating myself, but it's like micro cassettes.
I used to write stuff out on, if I didn't have sheet music, I would write it out like kind of either the scale degrees and kind of a vocal line or like a melody line, or I would just like, I don't know, I would write stuff out.
Yeah. Well, you could do that from your head. I mean, I could do that maybe at a piano, but if I was just say somewhere walking around, I'd have my little recorder. It would just be I don't have the skill set to.
Well, no, I mean, I'm like, in the middle of the night, you're like, can't sleep. And
Exactly.
And I, just get this out, just write it before iPhone's next to our bed every night.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Kerri, what'd you do?
I wasn't writing music then.
Oh.
I wasn't writing songs as much. But I band recorded into a cassette player, I suppose, like a regular sized one in my dorm room. But I wasn't writing as much now as I was before I had the technology to capture things.
Compulsively writing back then.
And I've heard since, there was an interview with a songwriter. I don't remember. It was somebody famous. I don't want to guess at the name because I'll get it wrong. But it was somebody who's had many hits. And he basically said, at this point in his career, so several decades in, he's like, if I have an idea for a song, I drop anything. I could be with my family because I don't know. He's seen from beginning to end and seen how that little crazy idea turned into, for him, probably a good income, all the things that come with that kind of success. And he just said, I'm at a point where I will not ignore even the slightest little idea. I'll drop whatever I'm doing to go chase it, it was kind of interesting. I mean, like,
that's like a Stephen Pressfield, like when the muse calls.
The muse, yeah.
Yeah, showing up and yeah.
That's cool. So I'm just going to push play on this Christmas for Two Chords.
You ready?
Or chorus.
The season's like a song, now that lonely days are gone. And my dear, it's all because of you. All the girls are gonna see that this boy's no longer free. This year will be a Christmas for two.
I love that suspension you put in there. That sounds really good, Gary. this is not what you sent us before.
Oh, no, okay. But it's interesting, like, going from that mumbly idea, which is almost gibberish and nonsense, to, like, sticking with the idea an hour, or maybe an hour and a half later, maybe even sooner. You guys know it. Sometimes it comes, and it's something. It's like, wow, there's something we can work with.
Yeah, so, and I mean, if we go back to, I know I didn't plan on going like back and forth between this, but
presents that I bought, the words I'm using when I talk, or maybe just the way I walk.
I love how you sing that phrase. From the Evernote, I'll play that in a minute too, but the way you sing "Way I Walk" just grabs you. You Kerri. It's just like, you have to hear the rest of the song.
It's such, wow, thank you.
All the girls are gonna see this boy's no longer free. This year will be a Christmas for two.
Well, listening to Gary sing a minute ago, just on the piano one, I'm like, I just want to write a bunch of songs and make Gary famous.
Yeah.
No.
Let's just, if you're down for that, we'll
I'm
write.
Down for it, yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
I'd be a fool to turn that down. Yeah.
Amen. Okay, so
the Christmas for Two line at the end was what I latched onto and took that and then made a chorus out of those words. And it wasn't what we had initially, but that's part of the evolution of a song. And then I wrote second and third verse, and then Bronwyn.
Do y'all want to hear Kerri's first chorus of this?
I would like to, because I
I
don't
would
remember
like to,
what
yeah, for
happened.
sure.
Because
For
last
sure.
night I was going through this and I was like, whoa, this is also not the same thing as what we ended up with. But the idea is there. Okay, so here's Kerri's first chorus run through.
This season's like a song. My lonely days are gone. And my dear, it's all because of you. Christmas for two, Christmas for you. Everything is different. Everything is new. Christmas for two. Enjoying this view. We'll have a Merry Christmas for two.
Co-writing is so necessary because that's not great. I mean, it's moving along, but it's not what it turned into. And I will hang my hat on co-writing forever.
Yeah, it's interesting. I struggle with it because for me, if I started with the idea and then I give it over, it's hard. I have trouble, and that's my own issue. Imagining it when it comes back in a different way. It's like, wait, I can't wrap my brain around that. It's almost like I can't contribute anymore because it's this different thing, which isn't really true. You can always like step up, and that's the craft of songwriting, right? It's like,
Well,
doing the
what I
work.
know, what I really liked about working with you, Gary, was that you were okay, like starting something and then sending it to either me or Kerri or both of us, and we did kind of shred them apart and like put them back together. In some instances, not all of them, but
Yeah, yeah.
Kerri always says, "Done is better than perfect." Like, if we need to write 50 songs, which we did, 50 Christmas songs, let me specify, you just got to get them done. And like, you're sharing the co-writing, you're sharing all of that. So like, it's ideas. And if you want to sit there for an hour and a half and like work on 3 lines, cool. But if you're stuck, like, let somebody like work on another 3 lines for whatever, another song,
Different
like
things.
send it
Yeah.
on. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's true. It was a very interesting process. We were just moving so quickly. It was not to take away from the quality of the work.
Well, but I think it's a different quality. I think it's just different going
Yeah.
to other people, going through other hands.
Mhm.
So Kerri sent me, I think it was just, we didn't do this in like any formal way of like, it's your turn. It was just like, hey, this song, I'm stuck, see what you can do. Or like,
Got as far as I could.
yeah.
Yeah, it was like hot potato. Like not hot potato, but
Yeah.
like the idea of
It was definitely hot potato with the way we
Yeah,
got
it
rid of
was.
things so
Oh,
quickly.
yeah, really, but trying to do that many songs in 2 months was like, this is the only way to do it. So Kerri, you basically took pretty much Gary's first verse and you wrote a second. You wrote this pre-chorus, you wrote a chorus, and you wrote a second and a third verse, I think. And when I got it, like, it didn't feel finished. It felt like naked somehow. Like the image that popped into my head was like a single flower in a vase. It's beautiful, but it needed something like foliage, like eucalyptus or baby's breath or whatever that stuff is called, like just to surround it and like support it, because it was gonna like wilt on its own. But this idea popped into my head, and probably because we'd done this already with another song, I just realized like the song is not from one person's perspective. Like, what if it was from 2 people's perspective? Because like that could be really special, and you could also mess with the harmony on that, like fill it out, kind of like the foliage supporting the single bud in the vase. Like 2 voices are better than one, not all the time, but in this case I think it was going to be just more interesting. So yeah, I took the verses, I played around it with it, so to make one from one perspective, one from the other, and then the last one was both of them singing together, harmonizing, and we ended up with what you can hear on your music streaming service of choice. Which brings me to today's sponsor, except we're not that cool yet. But if you want us to be sponsored by, say, I don't know, Rode microphones or something, or
I'm a fan.
I think Evernote should sponsor you guys with all the way we used Evernote to bounce things around.
we did shout out to Evernote in our first episode to ask if they would, but I haven't heard anything back from them yet.
Not yet.
Someday. But if you just want to help us pay for more full productions in the future, you can help by listening to the comparison playlists, where we put the unfinished demos next to the fully produced songs so you can see the difference. I'm going to link to the YouTube playlist, which would be here, and the other music streaming platform links are all in the description. So y'all can check those out on your music streaming of choice.
And also follow us on all the socials where there's the occasional blooper and some bonus content that doesn't really fit in the long episode. So we are at Song Evolvers and we're everywhere. As promised, how do you actually make a song a duet? So remember, there's those 5 stages of song production. There's sketch, work tape, demo, arrangement, and full production. And so for the first few stages, the sketching, the writing, the work taping, this is where we take that opportunity to really make the story make sense, because you really got to think through what's the actual story and does it make sense when the song is done. So thinking through, okay, who are your characters? It's a man and a woman, 2 women, 2 men, mother and child, a dog and a cat. I mean, it can be anything. And then what are the perspectives? So can you see them as if they were in a movie? Or when Gary started writing this, he saw this as like a Gene Kelly kind of thing where he's walking down a snowy lane. So we kind of started from there, but then we added the female counterpart. And then, like what Gary said too, like what would the music video look like? So snowy lane, walking down the lane, holiday. And then what are they saying? How do you separate the verses, the chapters? Does one person sing one verse and the other person sings another verse? Are they singing together? I mean, you've heard different duets on the radio before on your streaming services. They're all different how they all work together. But we had to think about where we wanted them to come in to make it an effective duet. And then finally, what instruments are accompanying while each character is singing, because that really affects the entire storyline. So spoiler alert too, for the bonus section, Bronwyn thinks that yes, it's super important, and we will talk about that later. So Gary, on the final production part, you got to plan ahead. So how do you technically do this? Because you don't want to go in the studio and not have an idea about these things, and even if you don't know how to do it yourself, you need to be able to communicate that to the producer and engineers. Love your take on this.
I think the first step, I mean, I'll give you my opinion, but again, there are much more qualified voices out there. You start with a great arranger, right? I mean, we got Aaron, have you talked about?
Yeah.
Aaron Zink, I mean, can we say? A colleague of ours and a friend and very talented musician and arranger. He kind of took these demos and turned them into, especially for a song like this, that really, I mean, I understand music theory and I use it all the time when I write, but I'm not a sophisticated, jazzing it up, to use really a layman's term. Like, to make it a little more harmonically sophisticated, I think you need somebody like an Aaron to imagine, even what the song could be. And especially when you start bringing in 2 voices, that making them harmonize, work together to maybe move out of harmony, almost like using it as a technique or a tool, different parts of the song where there's tension, maybe they're not quite as harmonious, and then bringing them back together, and suspensions, all the little tools that an arranger uses. So I think that would be one thought I have. And then the other is just kind of, because for me, I saw it as like a Gene Kelly type thing, that you might go into the studio thinking, how did they make records back then, and taking some of those techniques and applying them in the production. So, and that wouldn't be so much like, oh, we can't record digitally, we've got to record tape. It's more like your microphone selection, where the microphones are in the room in relation to the performers. Maybe, nowadays I think when most production people are right on top of the microphone singing, but back then they were relatively further back. So doing things like that, capturing a full performance, multiple, maybe the whole band playing at the same time, rather than layering and overdubbing the way so much production is done. So that would be another thought I might have. But again, I don't want to, I'm not an expert producer, but I've seen other people who are. So, and that's kind of those are some of the lessons I've picked up.
Yeah, no, the ancient recording techniques, that's not a perspective I would have thought of, partially because I didn't realize that you had this Gene Kelly like singing in the snow idea going on, which totally makes sense now that I hear this.
Yeah. And in terms of the old techniques, you see old photos of like Frank Sinatra recording or the Beatles, even, like they're off. Of course, they were in beautiful studios. It sounded great, so they weren't like in someone's bedroom somewhere, but they would be off the mic. And that was part of the sound.
I hadn't really thought about that. So actually having everybody in the same room telling the story at the same time, like back and forth. Yeah.
And they had fewer tracks. Think about that. They had to get it in 4 tracks or 8 tracks. So they had limited number of microphones that they had to strategically place to pick up. They were blending by where they placed. That probably gets beyond the scope of a songwriting podcast, but it is interesting. I mean, it's a whole other thing that I find fascinating, I know, for myself. But
this is a song production podcast.
Yes. Okay.
We go from the start to finish. So
Right.
This discussion is valid. Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, I think I think we can talk about when we did some of the demos, Bron, when we did one where we were using a figure 8 mic and we were like right across from each other. But then when we did the more polished production, we recorded separately and it was added, we recorded to the track and then it was added. So I think that's an interesting thing. If you have two people, I don't have a lot of experience as a vocalist or performer. I know you have much more, but I think in theory, the two of us being together in the room can play off each other in a way that you can't really do when you're recording, thousands of miles apart, which is what we're a couple thousand miles apart. We were so in the final production. So I think that that's something. If you can, I mean, that might be if you were producing duets, you might be thinking, is there a way I can get the two performers in the studio at the same time? I think that would really
actually singing at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now that I think about, because we didn't do this demo together,
right?
But we did a couple other demos, which are in our other playlists, which I'll talk about in a minute. That did actually really, really help to like breathe together and like do cutoffs. Like one of us was always like, I don't remember which one of us was doing what, but like.
Probably you, because you're you're the expert singer.
Well, but then, and we also had a guitar in the same room, so it was very like conduct, because he was like over there. So yeah, I forgot about that. So
I think that has to. I mean, it's just inherently different, right? Then if you recorded it and then sent it to me with little holes in the track where I'm supposed to sing.
Hey, Song Evolvers fans. We went a little long with our conversation with Gary. It was kind of exciting to have him in the virtual studio. We haven't talked to him for a while. So I'm going to break this episode into 2 pieces instead of just one really long one. So catch us in the next couple days for the next part of this conversation. Hope to see you guys there. Thanks.